Welcome to African Folktales by Mozzie. Please subscribe, like this video, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Don't forget to turn on your notifications so you never miss a new story. Today, I will tell you a story of three brothers who betrayed each other. Years earlier, betrayal was the last thing anyone expected from the sons of Paokori. Maduka, Chidi, and Keen were known across Akwaru village as the three pillars, tall, strong, and united. They worked their father's land together from sunrise to sunset. Maduka, the firstborn, was bold and commanding. He believed leadership was his birthright. Chidi, the second, was clever and observant. He spoke little but thought deeply. Keen, the youngest, was gentle and loyal. He followed without complaint and worked harder than all of them. Their father often gathered them by the fire at night. "When I die," Paokori would say, "people will test you. Greed will test you. Power will test you. Promise me one thing." They would answer together, "We will never betray each other." The promise sounded strong. Then after Paokori died, the land passed fully into their hands. At first, nothing changed. They farmed, sold crops, and shared meals. But slowly, small disagreements began to grow. Maduka wanted control. Chidi wanted fairness. Keen wanted peace. Those three desires could not live together forever. The real trouble began when oil was discovered near their land. Strangers arrived in shiny cars. They spoke of money, contracts, and development. One company offered a fortune for ownership rights. "This is our chance," Maduka said excitedly. "I will sign as head of the family." Chidi shook his head. "We must read everything carefully. Greedy men lose everything." Keen listened quietly. "We should decide together." Maduka frowned. "You are too soft." Chidi later spoke to Keen in secret. "Maduka wants power," he warned. "Be careful." But Keen trusted both his brothers. The company returned with documents. Maduka signed quickly. Chidi hesitated but followed. Keen signed last, uneasy. Weeks later, money arrived, but not equally. Maduka had taken more. Much more. When Chidi confronted him, Maduka laughed. "I am the eldest." Anger entered Chidi's heart. Suspicion followed. And for the first time, the brothers slept under the same roof with different thoughts. Soon, whispers filled Akwaru village. They say one brother cheated the others. They say another is planning revenge. The brothers stopped eating together. Keen noticed the cold silence. One evening, Chidi accused Maduka openly. "You stole from us." Maduka slammed his fist on the table. "I led us here." Keen stood between them. "Please. This money is already dividing us." Maduka pointed at Keen. "You always defend him," he said to Chidi. "Maybe you two are planning against me." The words shocked them both. That night, Chidi did not sleep. Greed twisted into fear. Fear turned into anger. By morning, Chidi had convinced himself that Keen was secretly siding with Maduka, and Maduka believed Chidi was plotting to remove him. Three brothers. Three different lies. None of them spoke the truth. Chidi was the first to act. He told Maduka that Keen planned to expose the unequal payment to the village elders. Maduka's face darkened with rage. Together, they decided to confront Keen in the forest. Away from witnesses, Keen followed them without fear. That was the night of the rain. When Keen realized what was happening, it was already too late. The rope, the accusation, the betrayal, all came at once. But as they ran away, something happened. Keen survived, bruised and bleeding. He crawled until an old charcoal burner found him at dawn. The man hid him and treated his wounds. "You must disappear," the old man warned. "Your brothers want you gone." With a broken body and shattered heart, Keen left Akwaru village before sunrise. Behind him, Maduka and Chidi believed the problem was solved. They did not know they had just started a chain of betrayals that would destroy them both. Keen wandered through forests and villages, moving silently as if the wind itself were guiding him. Hunger and pain gnawed at him, but his heart burned brighter than his fear. Betrayal had taught him one lesson. Trust must be earned, even from brothers. He found work with an old herbalist, Ijeoma, who lived on the outskirts of a distant village. She welcomed him, noticing his gentle spirit. "You carry sorrow," she said, "but sorrow can make a man strong." Days turned into weeks, and Keen learned more than farming and herbal knowledge. He learned patience, strategy, and how to observe without revealing his plans. At night, he sat by the fire, thinking of Maduka and Chidi. They had betrayed him for greed, but he had survived. That survival now gave him power beyond wealth, wisdom. Meanwhile, back in Akwaru, Maduka and Chidi grew restless. Without Keen, their crops began failing. Traders refused to return, claiming mismanagement. Both brothers argued daily, blaming each other for every setback. One evening, Chidi leaned close to Maduka, whispering, "If Keen were here, he would have solved this already." Maduka's face hardened. "Then we must find him, or remove him completely." Neither brother realized that Keen had already begun building something far greater than either of them had imagined. Keen's reputation began to spread. Villagers spoke of the young man who healed the sick with herbs, taught children, and worked without complaint. He built trust wherever he went. One day, a trader came with news. Land in a distant village was available for purchase. Keen saw an opportunity. He bought the land quietly, using what little savings he had. He expanded it, hired workers, and grew crops carefully, never rushing, never flaunting his success. By the time Maduka and Chidi learned of his achievements, Keen's farm rivaled their old property. Fear crept into their hearts. "He is stronger than us," Chidi whispered. Maduka shook his head. "We cannot let him stay alive and powerful." That night, they planned to send a messenger to Keen, offering a fake truce. "We will pretend to reconcile," Maduka said. "Then we will take everything he has." Back on Keen's farm, he sensed something. Years of betrayal had sharpened his instincts. He had learned that those closest to him could be the deadliest enemies. Keen smiled quietly to himself. "Let them come," he whispered. "Let them make their mistake." The messenger arrived at Keen's farm, bowing low. "My lords, your brothers send greetings and ask for peace." Keen studied him carefully. "Peace," he repeated. "After the rope, the rain, and the betrayal." The messenger hesitated, sensing danger. "They say they want to apologize and share profits." Keen's eyes glinted. "Tell them I am listening." When Maduka and Chidi arrived days later, they were cautious. Keen greeted them politely, but his calm smile unnerved them. "Welcome, brothers," he said. "I hope your journey was safe." They bowed stiffly, hiding their envy and fear. Inside, both plotted. They whispered among themselves, hoping Keen would not notice. Keen, however, had already predicted their moves. He placed guards discreetly, asked Ijeoma to watch their behavior, and studied every twitch of their faces. He knew that true power came from patience, not violence. That evening, over food and drink, Keen spoke of rebuilding villages and helping the poor. Maduka and Chidi nodded, pretending to agree. While their minds planned theft and sabotage, Keen's heart remained steady. He understood a truth his brothers had forgotten. Betrayal is a mirror. It reveals one's soul, not another's. Weeks passed. Keen's farm flourished while his brother's resentment grew. Small sabotages occurred, stolen tools, misplaced seeds, minor accidents. Chidi tried to blame Maduka, but Maduka argued they were signs of Keen's hidden power. Keen watched silently, never accusing, never confronting. He let their fear eat at them, slowly and thoroughly. Then came the night of the storm. Maduka and Chidi decided to strike, believing Keen was alone. They climbed into the storehouse, intending to steal grain and claim the land as their own. What they did not know was that Keen had anticipated this. Hidden in shadows, his loyal workers observed. When the brothers reached for the grain, nets dropped from the ceiling. Trapping them, Keen appeared, calm but commanding. "You came for theft," he said. "After all the pain you caused, you still chose betrayal." Maduka and Chidi struggled, realizing they had been outsmarted. Panic replaced arrogance. Keen's guards restrained them while the villagers arrived, summoned by discreet signals. The crowd watched in silence, shocked. Even the oldest villagers could not recall a display of justice so precise and merciful. Keen spoke, "I will not kill you, but you will leave with nothing, and your greed will be remembered." The brothers' faces paled. For the first time, they understood the cost of betrayal was far greater than they ever imagined. Morning broke. The sun revealed the destruction their greed almost caused. Maduka and Chidi stood barefoot, humbled, their pride stripped away. Keen gave them provisions for the journey, but no land, no money, no protection. "You have learned nothing," Keen said softly. "Your choices brought suffering upon yourselves. Remember this as you walk away." As they left, the villagers whispered in awe. Keen had risen above betrayal. His calm, strategy, and patience had turned their plot into a lesson for all. Back at his farm, Keen inspected his fields, his heart steady. He knew there would be more challenges, more threats, but he was ready. Years of survival and careful planning had made him stronger than any force his brothers could muster. He thought of Maduka and Chidi, not with hatred, but with the clarity of understanding. Betrayal can destroy, but wisdom survives. And somewhere in the forest, Keen smiled. The storm had passed, but the true test of loyalty, power, and family was only beginning. Weeks passed, and Keen's farm became a model of order and prosperity. Villagers from neighboring towns traveled to learn from him. He shared tools, taught new farming methods, and helped the poor rebuild homes destroyed by floods. Meanwhile, Maduka and Chidi wandered from village to village. They had nothing. Their names were whispered with contempt, a lesson to those who betrayed family for greed. Hunger gnawed at them, and shame weighed heavier than any storm. One night, Chidi spoke bitterly. "We survived because we are cunning. One day, Keen will trust us, and we will strike." Maduka shook his head. "No, brother, look at us. Even a child would see our failure." Chidi clenched his fists. "We are not finished. We will rise again, but on our terms." In the forest, Keen sat by the fire, thinking of the past. He remembered the rope, the rain, and the faces of betrayal. He had survived, yes, but he would not forget. He made a quiet vow. "I will forgive, but I will never forget. And when the time comes, justice will be exacted in a way they cannot escape." Keen rose, looking at the horizon. Power was not in wealth alone, it was in patience, observation, and knowing when to act. The brothers' greed was still alive, but Keen's mind was sharper, his resolve unbreakable. Months later, the company that first offered to buy their land returned. This time, they wanted to expand their operations, offering enormous sums. Maduka and Chidi, hearing of the opportunity, tried to act through intermediaries to seize Keen's new farm. Keen anticipated their moves. He had sent spies quietly to track anyone associated with his brothers. Every attempt to manipulate or deceive was reported back to him. The company executives visited Keen personally. They were amazed by the efficiency of his farm, the loyalty of his workers, and the harmony of the village. "This is incredible," one said. "How did you achieve such order so quickly?" Keen smiled. "Hard work, patience, and trust, and knowing whom to forgive and whom to watch carefully." Maduka and Chidi, disguised as merchants, approached the farm at night. They intended to sabotage the storage barns. Their plan was precise, but Keen's guards and traps had already anticipated every step. When they attempted to enter, nets fell, alarms sounded, and torches flared. The brothers froze. Keen appeared calmly, holding a lantern. "Did you truly think I would allow betrayal to happen again?" Panic overtook them. This time, the trap was not just physical, it was psychological. Keen controlled everything. Keen's judgment was clear. He did not harm the brothers physically. Instead, he summoned the villagers to witness their humiliation. "You have been given chance after chance," Keen said. "Yet greed and betrayal remain in your hearts. I will not destroy you with my hands. I will let the consequences of your own choices teach you." The villagers gasped as Keen handed the brothers empty sacks and pointed to the fields they had once neglected. "You will work here for the next harvest. Every day, you will toil under the sun, carrying water, repairing fences, and learning humility." Maduka and Chidi bowed their heads. Pride had left them. For the first time, they understood what it meant to be powerless. Keen did not celebrate their suffering. Instead, he looked at the sky, thinking of his father. "Paokori, I followed your lessons. Betrayal may come, but patience and wisdom prevail." The villagers whispered among themselves, seeing that justice could be merciful yet firm. Children learned that courage was stronger than deceit, and that betrayal could destroy even the strongest of bonds. For Keen, it was only the beginning. He knew more tests would come, and he had to prepare, not just for revenge, but for the preservation of what he had built. The harvest arrived. Keen's crops were bountiful, exceeding every expectation. He distributed food to the village and neighboring communities, earning respect far beyond Akwaru. Maduka and Chidi labored daily. They carried water, repaired barns, and listened quietly as Keen taught the villagers better farming methods. Humility replaced arrogance slowly, but fear remained. One evening, Chidi whispered to Maduka, "Even after all this, he does not hate us. He is stronger than we could ever imagine." Maduka shook his head. "Perhaps, but we cannot accept being beneath him forever. Our pride will not allow it." Keen overheard nothing. He had learned to focus on work, not words. That night, Keen walked through the village, observing his people. Children laughed in the streets, elders shared wisdom, and the once divided land was unified. I have rebuilt what was broken, he murmured. But betrayal may return in another form. I must remain vigilant, and he was. Every move, every whisper, every plan by outsiders was noted. Keen had turned survival into foresight, and foresight into strength. The brothers continued to work. Unaware that each action they took would be remembered in the ledger of consequences, Keen kept silently in his mind. Months became years. Keen's farm expanded into a small kingdom of productivity and loyalty. Traders from far and wide sought his counsel. Villagers prospered, and the memory of betrayal became a lesson, not a wound. Maduka and Chidi worked tirelessly, learning the value of patience and diligence. Yet, in their hearts, envy still burned. They whispered at night about revenge, hoping Keen would weaken with age, but Keen's mind had grown sharper, his strategy flawless. He trained a loyal group of workers to anticipate threats, not just physical, but emotional and financial. One day, a letter arrived. It spoke of another brother who had betrayed distant relatives, causing chaos in another village. Keen realized betrayal was a curse, but also a teacher. He summoned Maduka and Chidi. "Your past actions taught me much," he said. "Now, I will teach you the final lesson. Betrayal has its price, always." Fear gripped their hearts. For the first time, they understood that Keen's mercy was not weakness, it was preparation for justice they could not escape. The brothers glanced at each other, realizing that survival alone was not enough. Keen had risen above greed, and their actions would shape their lives forever. The stage was set for the ultimate reckoning. The village of Akwaru thrived under Keen's careful leadership. Crops were plentiful, and the villagers respected him not just for his strength, but for his fairness. Every day, he walked among them, observing, listening, and teaching. Maduka and Chidi continued their labor, silent and broken. Yet, envy lingered in their hearts. Each glance at Keen reminded them of the wealth, power, and respect he commanded, all rewards they had once tried to steal. Late one night, Chidi whispered, "Maduka, we cannot endure this forever. He will never trust us. We must act." Maduka frowned, conflicted. "We were given work, food, and shelter. But still, envy eats me alive." "Perhaps you are right. Perhaps there is one way to regain what we lost." Meanwhile, Keen had already anticipated unrest. He had set guards and trusted allies to watch the brothers' every move. He understood human nature. Betrayal never sleeps. It waits for weakness. That night, the brothers met in secret, plotting to steal the harvest. They whispered, pointing to barns, grain stores, and hidden treasures. They believed stealth would succeed, but Keen's traps were invisible to them. The nets, alarms, and loyal workers were ready. Every step they took toward deceit led them closer to exposure. Betrayal, Keen knew, must always be met with patience and precision. As Maduka and Chidi crept toward the grain stores, a quiet whistle pierced the night. Suddenly, the barn door slammed shut behind them. Torches flared, revealing Keen's guards standing in silent formation. The brothers froze. Panic gripped their hearts. "How?" Maduka stammered. Keen stepped forward from the shadows, lantern in hand. "You were given mercy, guidance, and work. Yet here you are, plotting theft again." Chidi tried to speak. We only stop," Keen said calmly. "I will not shout, I will not strike. You will face the consequences of your actions." The villagers arrived quietly, surrounding the scene. They had been watching all along, learning the final lesson of betrayal firsthand. Keen's voice rose. "Maduka, Chidi, you have betrayed me once, twice, and now thrice. Your greed and envy have consumed you. You will leave Akwaru with nothing, and you will remember this night for the rest of your lives." The brothers fell to their knees, shame and fear etched into every line of their faces. For the first time, they understood the depth of Keen's wisdom. Survival was not enough. Respect and trust could not be stolen, they could only be earned. The villagers whispered in awe. Keen had turned betrayal into teaching, patience into power, and mercy into final judgment. Maduka and Chidi were sent away the next morning. Keen provided them with basic provisions, but no land, no gold, and no protection. Their pride had been stripped completely. As they walked away, the villagers observed silently. Some whispered about Keen's brilliance, others about the brothers' foolishness. The elders nodded. This was justice done wisely, without bloodshed. The brothers tried to survive in neighboring villages, but their reputations preceded them. Traders refused them, and villagers laughed at their failed schemes. Hunger followed them, humiliation stalked them, and the memory of Keen's cleverness haunted every step. Meanwhile, Keen returned to his work. Crops flourished, children learned, and the village prospered. He had turned betrayal into opportunity, weakness into vigilance, and greed into a lesson that would echo for generations. But even as peace returned, Keen knew the final test would not come from the outside, it would come from within. The brothers' envy had been defeated for now. But the human heart is a restless battlefield, and patience is a weapon that must never sleep. He watched the sun rise over the fields, feeling the wind through the crops. The world was calm, but he remained alert. He had learned that true power lies not in retaliation, but in understanding the human soul. Years passed. Keen's influence grew far beyond Akwaru. Traders sought his advice, neighboring villages emulated his methods, and his name became a legend. Maduka and Chidi had disappeared from nearby lands, wandering in isolation. Hunger and shame had tempered their pride, but envy never fully left. They were shadows of the men they once were, constantly haunted by the memory of their youngest brother's patience and cunning. One day, a messenger arrived with shocking news. Distant villages had been raided by bandits. Traders and villagers had lost everything. Keen knew immediately that this was no ordinary theft, it was orchestrated. A test of his ability to protect not just his own people, but others who trusted him. He gathered loyal workers, elders, and children who had grown under his guidance. Together, they rebuilt the raided villages, shared food and knowledge, and restored order. In doing so, Keen cemented his reputation further. People whispered, "This is the man who survived betrayal and turned it into power." He does not fight with anger. He fights with wisdom. Meanwhile, far away, Maduka and Chidi heard of Keen's deeds. Jealousy flared anew. "He has everything we ever wanted," Chidi said bitterly. "We must act before it is too late." Maduka nodded slowly. "But this time, we cannot fail. Our pride demands it." The storm of betrayal was rising again, but Keen's vigilance was already prepared. Keen anticipated the next move. He had learned long ago that betrayal is rarely sudden. It grows in shadows, in whispers, in unchecked envy. He inspected the village's defenses, trained workers in observation, and set subtle traps to detect intruders. He knew that when the brothers returned, they would not act recklessly, they would be careful, calculating, and desperate. Night fell. The wind carried distant voices. Keen's guards reported strange movements near the forest edge. "I see them," Keen whispered, watching the shadows. "Maduka and Chidi have returned." The brothers crept toward the village, hoping to claim Keen's wealth. They were silent, careful, but every step brought them closer to Keen's observation. Keen smiled quietly. Years of patience, teaching, and planning had led to this moment. The final reckoning was near. For the brothers, greed had been a slow poison. For Keen, patience had been the ultimate weapon. Tonight, the truth would finally be revealed, and the consequences of betrayal would shock everyone. The seventh king, Abba Adeyemi, was known across the lands as the wisest and most cunning of all rulers. Adana arrived at his court, her heart steady, though whispers of fear fluttered through her chest. Unlike the others, Adeyemi did not confront her with jewels or threats. Instead, he presented her with a challenge of wit, a riddle spoken in the secret tongue of the elders, one that no ordinary woman could solve. Adana listened carefully, letting the words sink like water into clay. Her mind raced, connecting patterns, histories, and stories she had memorized since childhood. With a calm voice, she answered not just correctly, but in a way that revealed a hidden layer of meaning the king had never considered. Ademi's eyes widened, a mix of astonishment and unease crossing his face. For the first time, Adana sensed that her reputation had preceded her in a way she had not fully controlled. The king's test was not of intellect alone, it was a probe into the very essence of her being. That night, Adana wandered the palace gardens, the moon casting silver paths through the ancient trees. Servants and guards slept, leaving the halls quiet, but the whispers of the past seemed alive in the wind. She felt it, the presence of those who had walked before her, those who had tried to wield power without understanding its weight. From the shadows, a mysterious figure emerged, an old woman draped in beads and scarlet cloth, her eyes sharp and knowing. "You play a dangerous game, child," she said, voice like rustling leaves. "7 kings, 7 tests. But the one who comes last may not be who he appears to be." Adana's heart quickened. Could it be that her final trial was not only for her wit, but for something far more perilous? The old woman vanished into the night, leaving a single golden pendant on a marble bench, a pendant that seemed to hum with ancient energy. The following day, the seventh king hosted a grand feast, inviting the most powerful nobles, foreign dignitaries, and spiritual leaders. Each guest wore a mask, hiding intentions, alliances, and secrets. Adana, disguised only by her presence and poise, moved gracefully among them, reading gestures and glances like an open scroll. The king leaned closer, murmuring in her ear, "Tonight, no one may see truth as it is. Only those who understand the unseen may survive this night." As music swelled and drums echoed, Adana noticed subtle exchanges, a hand under the table, a folded note, a silent nod. Her intuition told her this feast was not mere celebration. It was a battlefield of minds and hearts. Her every move had to be precise, for even the smallest misstep could unravel all she had achieved. After the feast, Adana explored the palace halls, drawn toward a door slightly ajar, hidden behind tapestries depicting ancient battles. Beyond it lay a chamber she had never seen, walls lined with scrolls, carved relics, and objects pulsing with a strange energy. Her fingers hovered over an old journal, its pages brittle, but alive with secrets. Names of kings she had encountered were etched in a strange script, alongside warnings she hadn't yet understood. The final note struck her like lightning. The one who conquers 7 kings will discover not victory, but the choice of destiny itself. Adana realized that her journey was approaching a fork she could not predict. The kings were not merely obstacles, they were guardians of something far older and infinitely more powerful than she had imagined. The 7th king summoned her at dawn, the sky streaked with gold and crimson. "Adana," he said, "you have outwitted kings, navigated shadows, and unveiled truths hidden from the world. But the final question is not of intellect or courage. It is of choice. Will you accept what lies beyond, knowing it may change not only your life, but the fate of all our lands?" Adana's mind raced. Every lesson, every secret, every mask she had encountered had led to this moment. She felt the weight of history, of ancestors who had whispered their wisdom into her ears. With a steady gaze, she stepped forward, knowing that whatever she chose would define not just her story, but the stories of generations to come. Her secret, the power that allowed her to fool 7 kings, was no longer hers alone. It was a force that demanded wisdom, courage, and sacrifice. And in that moment, Adana realized that some truths are too powerful to be kept hidden, and some legends are only born through daring choices.